Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to Mr. Lucas Fowler from North Carolina. Exactly, the city is called Winston-Salem.
Yes.
And Lucas is, well, a lot of things. First, he's a killer singer, he's a great guitar player, and he's got a YouTube channel. And lately, he is using the AMP1 Iridium edition. And I came across him on many levels, as the musician, but a lot about his different guitars, mainly PRSs. Seems like he loves the PRS, but also a lot of other guitars. And for me, it was kind of it's a good match with what you do and what we do with the AMP1 Iridium edition. But maybe before we start to go into this detail, let me know a little bit more about your background with your bands and your music. So what are your main influences? What kind of guy are you? We can play some of your music snippets, but maybe let us know how you came to that kind of music first.
Yeah, definitely. I started playing guitar when I was 14. My dad is a guitar player, so I kind of was exposed to it at a young age. But my dad, is, kind of in the 80s was sort of the music that he grew up with, really. I mean, 60s, 70s, 80s, that kind of stuff. So that was mostly what was played in the house, and therefore that is what I kind of absorbed. And so I was really kind of an odd one out with the rest of my guitar player friends, because I have what I would call way more of like a classic rock and blues background than most guys my age. I sort of, carried that through high school, and it turns out when you're 17 and you're playing with a bunch of other 17-year-olds, they don't want to play classic rock. So they all wanted to play more modern music and metal and stuff like that. So I kind of was exposed to it that way. But that gateway of the classic rock and blues thing kind of influences the way that I play the other stuff. So I would consider myself just kind of like a rock guitar player, but I'm firmly rooted in more classic stuff. That's definitely where my style comes from. And then the other thing is just a vocabulary that I learned.
Yeah, sure. Well, I checked out some of your band stuff with InterTwyneD, and what came to my mind is kind of a folk, metal, pop, rock thing. It's kind of a mixture of all that styles that you kind of keep together with your voice, with your songs, with your singing and your guitar playing. 'Cause I can see in your eyes. I know we'll take things over, it's alright. Nothing is black or white. Black or white. Yeah, it's very interesting music. It's not only just that metal thing or just that folk thing or just that pop thing. It has all these different colors, and it still feels like it blends nicely, and it's a style.
Yeah. I think that really comes from the other band guys, friends of mine, and one of them is actually the drummer is my cousin. But we sort of came from different musical backgrounds, and we just thought it would be cool to what if we could take all these things and just figure out a way to stick them together and make them work. And after some diligent effort, I feel like we kind of achieved something unique. And so we did 2 albums with InterTwyneD, and I just thoroughly enjoyed all of that. It was our bass player is terrific. Travis is his name. Incredible bassist, great R&B funk licks. He just had that real soulful vibe to him. And then the other guitar player, Kenan, is a really deeply rooted metalhead, which is where a lot of the more aggressive stuff comes from. And I would try to sort of wrangle these things together to how can we make this something that is viable, I guess. And I think it came out really cool.
Yeah, and the other band you are doing is Whistler? has more of an stadium pop approach to it. I mean, it's still. How is this band different from your perspective?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I think one of the big differences is in InterTwyneD, I sang almost everything, about 95% of the music. And in Whistler, I don't sing really any lead parts. I just do backups. And I also don't really write the song in that band. I kind of come at it more from a production standpoint, like as a producer, and I kind of do arrangements and things like that. But our singer Bradley is a really great songwriter, and he writes these really he writes them on acoustic guitar, and they have that sort of feel to them, and then we just kind of carry them into a band thing. But that, to me, that band is wildly different in a lot of ways, and it kind of allows me to flex different muscles, you know. Which is a lot of fun, because I love to do the InterTwyneD thing, and that is awesome progressive music that allows me to explore all kinds of different things. But sometimes it's fun to just go play big power chords and rock, you know. and Whistler's a lot about just, you know, big anthem type songs that are a lot of fun to play.
Yeah, and very catchy melodies. I mean, you know, the choruses you can actually sing along easily.
For sure, for sure.
I got them even listening, once to the songs or twice, and it's like, oh yeah, you know, join in. It's that kind of atmosphere.
It kind of builds a camaraderie. It's, you know, like it's that it carries well when you go play places. People, you know, you catch it quickly and go like, oh yeah, I'm feeling this whole, like, everybody's on the wave, you know.
Yeah. So when it comes to your arsenal of guitars and amps, I mean, I can see a lot of, I actually see more guitars in the background than amps, but I guess you have a history in both. I see a Strat, I see a lot of PRSs on the wall. So is there any... well, I guess you like them all, but is there any special guitars, and why do you have so many PRS guitars?
Those are good questions. I do have a lot of guitars. Part of that is just being, as you know, you get into this stuff and you start collecting things, and you don't mean to, and before you know it, you have like 20 guitars or something. It sneaks up on you. But yeah, I've always been. I do have a reasonable collection of amps. I probably have 8 or 10 or something like that, you know, not like nice amps, but I tend to be a kind of one amp guy, whatever I'm in the mood for, and I just sort of play that for a while, and the guitar that I play really affects the way that I play, and so that's kind of where I get a lot of my changes in timbre, is like, you know, going from a Strat to a Les Paul or whatever really changes the way that I think about what I'm doing. And the first guitar I ever played was a PRS. My dad has a 1987 PRS metal. It's a custom, crazy looking paint job on it. This is very early in the PRS thing. And just for, you know, something about that guitar just stuck with me. It was like, this is what guitar is supposed to sound like and feel like, and it's just what I was exposed to. And so on down the line, I finally got my own PRS, and that was it. And the reason I have so many of them is tunings, actually. Tunings and backups. In InterTwyneD, we have like 4 different tunings, I think, that we've used for different things. And so, you know, you have different string gauges for different tunings and different setups and stuff like that. So I would have guitars in each tuning, and then you got to have a backup for that guitar, because if you break a string or something, you know. So that's really the reason that I have so many of them, is just for different tunings and backups. But the one that is, you were talking about special, the one that to me is really the special one I've got right here, is this one. This is a David Grissom, a DGT. And it does a really good job of having the thing that I like about PRS, which is, it's sort of hard to put into words. But it also feels a lot like a vintage guitar, because some of the PRSs feel more like modern guitars. They have the thinner necks and stuff like that, and this has you know, a little bit thicker body. It's a little closer to a Les Paul, and it's got a nice chunky neck on it, and it just feels like, if you close your eyes, you would kind of feel this feels a little bit like somewhere between an old Strat and an old Les Paul, and so it does that kind of marrying the two worlds thing that I'm all about, and I bought this guitar
Yeah.
when I was working in a music store, and it just was the one that came in, and I just saw it on the wall, and I was like, "Don't even put it up there. I want it."
Yeah, and that's mine. Hey, talking about the music store, the other time when we spoke, you mentioned, or we both talked about coil tapping and the things is kind of in between humbuckers and single coils and how to get into sounds between the two different words, which PRS is kind of part of his concept, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm, you know, for me personally, I'm a Strat guy that is a purist with my, you know, 61 Strat that I play since I'm 17, and you know this is kind of. But then, you know, I got my Les Paul here, and I got, Super Strats and other guitars. But the more I found, I discovered humbuckers in my favor. You know, being grown up in a different world with single coils and Richie Blackmore as my hero. Unfortunately, my dad wasn't playing guitar, so I didn't have a PRS back then. But anyway, so the point being is, I'm coming from the other end, probably trying to get different tones out of single coils or based on single coils, and you already started more experiments by coil tapping and other things with humbuckers, and you also have a collaboration going on with some, what is it, a pickup maker company?
Planet Tone is the name of the company, and a wonderful gentleman named Jose, and he makes pickups. And I tried some, and I thought they were terrific. So I kind of, built a little bit of a relationship with him. And at one point, I was like, I have this idea for a pickup in my head that sounds a certain way. Can you make something like this? And I sort of used guitar player words to describe what I was talking about, because I don't, I'm not a pickup maker. But I sort of tried to explain to him what I wanted based on some other things of his that I tried and stuff. And he said, I think I know what you want. And I don't know, like a couple of months later or something like that, he sent me a pair of these pickups. And it's in the guitar that I just showed you. And just all of a sudden, it was like, that's it, that's my sound. And it's like this quest, this sound that I'd been chasing for almost 20 years or something. And when I really hit that, it was so much of that has to do with being able to go between single coil and humbucker sounds, and it sound good, because I think usually pickups they'll do one well and the other one probably not so well. But that is a huge part of my thing, is those pickups. Now they so clearly represent like the thing that I want to do, that I end up putting them in all of my guitars, because they just, whatever the guitar sounds like is what it sounds like, but it comes through my microphone, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have a similar relationship with a guy here in Germany called Andreas Kloppmann, who has his own company, and I think what's so important is that you find a common language of understanding. I mean, when you just said, like, you described whatever words you've been using, and the guy knew what you talk about, and finally even produced something that was what you were dreaming about. I mean, that's, sometimes I find guys that make great pickups, but I was asking for something special for myself. I described it and I got a great pickup, but not for me. And so I had my relationship started with Andreas Kloppmann because he was the first one that understood me correctly and did exactly what I wanted. And then with that kind of basis, we grew up over whatever, 25 years or even longer. So as long as I can think. And so we have a lot of knowledge that we can share already from different versions of pickups, from different talks we had, from different, have you played that guitar? And then we check that out, and then, he has that input. And so when we talk about something that I want, we can refer to something we both know. And so you have that kind of relationship as well, which I think it's important. And when you create stuff that you can't build yourself. I mean, you're a musician, and you're not the winder. You don't know if it's the blah blah wire. And
Yeah, I mean, I have a somewhat better understanding of it now that I've spent, years talking to him about it and everything, but especially then at the time, I could say, like I could tell you I want it to be hotter or weaker, or I want it to be brighter or darker or something like this, but there's these little difficult things to describe, like how do you describe that quality of the two humbuckers together in parallel, like you hear the Jimmy Page in the middle position sound, like how do you describe that particular thing? And I don't want it to sound like this, but I want it to quack or what are all these different, and so finally through whatever grace, I was able to describe that to him. He understood it, and ever since then that has just been, I've been so satisfied with that. That's probably was one of the biggest moves forward in my guitar playing experience, was just finding a pickup that's like, that's the sound I know, that's what I like. And that's a huge deal, as you know, when you find something like that.
Absolutely. This is what I can tell when I watch your videos, because, when I watch the videos, it feels confident in a way. It's not like you are a YouTuber that checks out gear. No, I can tell it all makes sense. I mean, the guitars that they're using, and when you play the AMP1, it's like, it's just like, you make the clean sound. It's not like I sit there and say, shit, I hope he would change some of the setting. No, it is, you know what you're doing. You have a vision of your tone, and it seems like it to connect and lock, and when I hear what you're doing, it sounds like, he makes the AMP1 Iridium edition sound cool with what he's doing.
Well, I'm talking about that pickup, and that's a big movement for me. The AMP1 was kind of another moment like that, because I. When I got it, I got it out of the box, and of course you sit there and look at it and think, wow, this looks cool, But at some point, you go plug it in, and you have that, like, I don't know how this is gonna go, because anytime you get a new piece of gear and you don't know how it's gonna go. So I plugged it in to a little cabinet, a small 112 cabinet, and I think I spent probably 3 hours in the room with it, because I was just it just did it, and I think part of it is the tone controls. They work in a different way. Sometimes a tone control on a certain amp, you can turn it and it just destroys the sound of the amplifier. And it's something about the gain staging or something, and those amps are very difficult for me to work with. Whereas this, like, the AMP1 has a sound, and then the tone controls just allow you to move it a little bit, And so, like, I like the sound, and so then I can just put it where it needs to go in the mix. And that was huge for me it makes it so simple. And simple is great when you just want to make music, So I really, really like the AMP1, especially now that I have it on this board thing, and like, this is my whole rig. This is what I take to
Pedalboard.
Like, it's the whole there's no cabinet, anything. It's all here.
Yeah, it is an MS3, is it?
Yes.
What I see?
Yeah.
The Boss MS3. And you use that in the 4-cable method?
I do.
Or is this? So you have pre-effects and post-effects, and you have what can I see? There's of course a tube screamer, and what's the reddish yellowish? No, what is it? Orange pedal. Is this a Phase 90?
It's a Phase 90, yeah. But it's a simple. There's a little buffer up here, but then it's just a wah. That's a BBE bin wah, which it's not a very expensive sounding wah, but it just works. And then this is a little Moore flanger called the Elect Lady, which I guess is sort of based on the Electric Mistress.
Yeah, Electric Mistress, yeah.
Yeah, and I got that from a friend years ago, and I've had a whole bunch of flangers, and just for some reason I keep going back to this one. It's a little tiny, I don't know, it just sounds good. This is I think they call it a custom shop script Phase 90. It has the LED in it, but I got this in like, I don't know, 2007 or something, and it's just been on every version of my pedalboard. I'm a big Eddie Van Halen fan, so it was like a no-brainer. Oh, I have to have a flanger and a phaser. Like, do I have any reason to have them on here at the time? No. But so I end up making excuses like, oh, I can use it here or whatever. But yeah, that all goes in the front of the amp. And then it goes into the Boss, and as you pointed out, this is 4-cable method. So I put it in the last of the 3 loops. The preamp is in the last of the 3 loops. And then before that, I have an EP booster, which just sounds so good that I could kind of leave it on all the time. I don't, but it just makes everything a little bit warmer. Like, It's really great if you're having a bad night.
Warmer rounder.
Yeah, like if you're having one of those nights where your fingers just don't want to cooperate. That's huge. So that's I use very little extra output from that, but it just makes it sound nicer. And then yeah, it's an original tube screamer actually. It's one of the like an 81 or something. Again, was
yeah,
exactly. And I get into things people are always talking about, like, oh, it's not really better. It's the new ones are just as good or whatever. I'm like, I mostly agree. I think this is like maybe 5% better than the new ones, but to me 5% is enough. to justify. And since I have it, I wouldn't have gone and sought one out and paid whatever crazy amount of money it was. But since I have it, yeah. And then then I use things like delay and chorus. That comes from the MS3. And then the big part, this is a little more. I don't know how we can see it back here, but back here there's this thing.
A more cap.
Yeah.
What is it? IR loader.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And I like that because it just allows you to go DI, but you can load it with a whole bunch of different impulse responses. And
sure.
The speaker cabinet, as you know, is such a huge part of your sound. That's great for me to be able to, like, it's almost as if I could go to the venue and just try out what cabinet I think sounds best in that venue, and which is a big deal. And I make my own impulse responses. Like this cabinet back here, the oak one, that is my favorite cabinet of all time. It just has a sound about it. And so I made a capture of that cabinet, and so I can take that anywhere without having to lug that 80-pound behemoth, which is terrific. And then that just goes to a little DI box, which just send it to the front of the house. But it's a very simple rig, but it's small and compact, and I can one trip everything in. I have one of those. It's like a mono gig bag that you put 2 guitars in. So when I go play with Whistler, I can put 2 guitars in, put all my cables in that, take the pedal board, and I'm done. It's one trip from the car to the gig. It's terrific, which is huge for me because I am very busy. So being able to just in and out like that is terrific.
Yeah. I mean, just looking at the pedal board, I can tell its overhead compartment size. It is as it should be, maxed to be, easy to lug around, size, weight, and this is all you need. I mean, even if you want more stuff, it's all in the Boss MS3. I mean, there's tons of options in case you need them, but you still have your favorite analog pedals, your Eddie Van Halen Instant Eddie at your feet in non-compromised quality, kind of.
Yeah, and I put those here because those are kind of like, I would call them like to taste effects, where I really just turn it on for 5 or 10 seconds at a time in a song.
Yeah.
Some other things I'll set in here as presets. Like, I don't use it every song, but there are some things where I want tremolo. So I program in the songs. They all have their own sets of patches, so that because like I said, I sing backups the whole night, so it's really would be difficult to tap dance everything. So when I just, we play a song, I just switch to like, this button for the chorus, and this button for the bridge, and this button for the solo, and that's it. Just changes all those things at once, which is also very helpful.
Yeah, so you have the options. About the AMP1 Iridium, which channels are you using most? Of course, the clean is the clean, and you make it sound really good, especially when you have high output pickups. I saw one episode where you had that, and I thought, yep, he's got it. He knew how to dial in that to make those pickups sound really, nice to the ears, and not like poking. I don't know the English word. That where it hurts. So,
pointy is what I would call it.
Pointy, yeah. So you found that spot.
There's a few secrets to that. To answer your first question, I use all of the channels actually. With Whistler, I use the clean channel a fair bit, and then I would say I probably spend most of the night on the vintage channel. And I MIDI control the gain. So like the gain knob is set at 10, but I don't actually have it set at 10. It's set at like, I think 80 out of like 127 or something most of the time. And then when I go to a lead sound in Whistler, I go to the classic mode because it's maybe just a little bit thicker. And I have that's when the tube screamer comes on in front of that, just to make the legato stuff.
Push it, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the trick with the clean thing is compressors. I kind of figured out the right range of compression, because the compressor also acts as a limiter. And so if you kind of know how to work within the realm of that without, if you hit it real hard, it would be very obvious that you have a compressor on and it doesn't sound good, I think. But if you kind of learn how hard to hit the guitar and you kind of internalize that with the wall that you get from the compressor, then you can, I think, make it sound pretty good. And it doesn't drop down in the mix, because Whistler has 2 other guitar players. So I can't drop down too much or I'll disappear, So the compressor helps keep the clean sound up here so that you can hear it and it, is part of the song. And then the modern channel, I use that when I do the heavier stuff. I just kind of exchange the vintage channel for the modern channel. Yeah. But the classic, I play all my leads on that. Mm-hmm. It just sounds with the tone, the little tone control back here, it rolled all the way off. Because I just like that really warm kind of. I would call it almost like classic Mesa Boogie sound, like the Mark I sort of thing. Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of like the lead sound I hear in my head.
Yeah, I think the classic channel, when it's counterclockwise, it is like you described, a round tone, something that you get also from your pedal, the EP booster, that has this kind of, makes you happy, and everything is at the right place. It's exactly. It's friendly. It's easy to connect with, and it makes you play better because it's like, everything is at the right place. I feel comfortable. I'm a hero.
That's such a big thing
Just
for me.
give me a little bit of delay.
Yeah, if the tone is not good, my playing is not good. I've had that problem my entire guitar playing career. Some guys are great at it, and no matter what you plug them into, they still show up and do it. I am not one of those guys. If it sounds bad, I get immediately discouraged.
Yeah, but that's something I had amps in my past, even amps that I designed myself, that were hard to play, because I was at points where I was striving for the ultimate authentic, tone of whatever, and it felt like shit, but sounded killer. I've been there, and all my old Marshalls in the early days, I formed a 3-piece band just to get the experience of Jimi Hendrix, and non-master volume playing clubs with these amps was a torture for everybody, including me, the guitar player. They sound killer, but it's like, it was a challenge. Finally, I'm super happy about having been there and now transferring the tones that I experienced and get these tones into the next level and get it in the vintage channel with the dynamic, but still having a kind of playability and usability, for our modern scenarios.
Absolutely.
My Plexis are great sounding amps, but only at one little spot, and then you put them somewhere else. It's a big.
Yes, I have historically been a Mesa Boogie guy, and those have a similar thing. It's not exactly the same because you don't turn them all the way up. Those don't sound good if you turn them all the way up, I don't think. They get mushy. But they do like to be loud, and louder than most sound guys would like you to be. And they're heavy. They're so heavy, and you just get tired of carrying 80-pound amps everywhere. But so to find something that kind of does a sound that is comfortable and feels good to play and sounds good to the people in the audience, and have it be really accessible like that is so helpful. And I think you've done such a good job with all of the channels. That's the other thing. A lot of times I find with a multi-channel amplifier, one of the channels sounds great, maybe 2, if it's a multi-channel, 3-channel or something, but never all of them. They never all sound good. But this does. I think that all of the channels sound excellent, and they're distinctly different, but enough that they work together. You know what I mean? It's like shades of the same color. which is important because unless you're Eric Johnson, you can't just change from one rig to the other and not have the audience go, you know.
Yeah.
And I can't do that. But with this, it's so it makes sense altogether. But they're enough different to do the things that I want them to do.
Yeah, Lucas. So you started your own YouTube channel like in 2010, which is like 12 years ago from now.
At the time, it wasn't really. It was just kind of something I did for fun. Just I didn't think anyone would watch it, to be honest, I didn't really pursue it hard until much later. I did a little bit in college, kind of because I was playing in bands and I didn't have a ton of time, nor did I have experience with this kind of stuff. It wasn't until my daughter was born she was born in 2016. It's about that time that I kind of had to back off from playing out as much because I had to be dad. And I thought, well, I could go back to doing this, and this is something that allows me to kind of pursue music things and have some fun while I can't be going and doing tons of gigs every week. And that's when it sort of started to pick up again, which has been cool.
Yeah. So in all that time, do you have like videos of yourself that you think, oh man, these are crap, and some they are killer? I mean, stuff like that happens.
Yeah. Some of my earliest videos, before I had figured out the idea of like, oh, you should put a microphone on the cabinet of the amp instead of just having it be the camera microphone, or I think in probably my earliest video, I think I'm wearing pajama pants and I'm not even in the, like, you know, I'm just, my legs are in the shot or something, you know, because I didn't think anybody was going to watch it, you know. But yeah, definitely there are some things like that. But then occasionally I'll come across one when someone is asking me about a pickup, because I do a bunch of demos for Planetone. And I'll link them to a video, and then I'll watch a second of it and hear a lick, and I'm like, I don't do that lick anymore. What was that? So I have to stop and relearn my own thing, you know. So yeah, it's interesting. It's like being able to document your playing over 10 years or something in some respects, and the way your tone and your taste change and stuff. So that's kind of neat.
Yeah. So, and how do you deal with the people that make bad comments, you know, the trolls that go, weird stuff? I think that's kind of thing with the internet as well. I mean, we all have a lot of positive feedback. How you deal with the guys that do you have those?
Yeah, I don't have too many of those, because I don't do a ton of like particularly divisive stuff, I guess. Some people feel really strongly about certain things and they got to tell you. But generally, I just kind of like give them a little heart, so I'm like, I saw you. and then I just let it go.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, it doesn't really bother me. I mean, it's just, because again, like I said, I don't do anything that I'm trying to stir up controversy over or anything. It's mostly just stuff that I find interesting, and I would say if you don't like it, just don't watch it. Like, this is free content. You don't have to do. I'm not asking you to do anything. If you want to watch it, by all means. If not, then just don't watch it.
Yeah. Is there anything you would tell young guys that start to do YouTube in like now? What has changed? I mean, I started my YouTube activity with a pandemic. Actually, I've done something before, but I never thought of YouTube. But not being able to travel, not doing clinics, not being able to do gigs, I had free time, and I was thinking about the YouTube thing to start it, and then I started it, and maybe I had the advantage of watching other people's channel and thinking, this is how it works.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, that's very helpful.
So do you have a thing?
Yeah, a couple of things. Because some people have asked me this question before. Because I mean, I'm not one of those guys that has 400,000 subscribers or something,
but millions.
I know a little about it, and to me, I think the biggest thing is people come to watch you as the person. It's not about how good you are as a guitar player, or how good your tone is, or how cool your gear is, or whatever. I mean, all those things factor in, but really what they're there for is you. And so just be yourself, I guess. I know that sounds cliche, but just be genuine. I think that's generally what has served me well. Is I'm not good at not being genuine. I couldn't do it if I wanted to. And little things like it's important to think about the lighting in your video. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but people should be able to see you. And then if you're going to play guitar through an electric guitar thing, figure out a way to go DI or use a microphone or something. Don't use a camera mic. Little things like that. But it's all rudimentary kind of stuff, and there's no right way to do it. There are so many channels that have been so successful that do it very differently from everyone else, and I think that's part of it. But ultimately, it just comes back to just be yourself.
Yourself.
That's what people want to see.
Yeah, don't overthink stuff. I mean, I learned that too, because sometimes the best of my episodes were the ones where everything was kind of floating. It's like, whoops, we were flying, no clue, and it turned out to be totally different from what was planned or whatever. And then I learned, have a few ideas just in case, and then just go on live and do what comes to mind. And this is why I do my live streams for the interaction thing, which helps a lot too. But that's the thing. For me, it would be great if we can carry on the coil tab thing, and as I hope I have find some time for my experiments, because I know you sent me an email with some kind of insight and little things how to blend the coils together with the little resistors and stuff, and I need to try that out, and then we have to do an update here.
Yeah. There's some neat tricks that I didn't learn about until a few years ago that I thought, man, if I had known these way before then, I would have been so much happier, so much faster. It's once you understand it and then try it, you think, wow, like I can never go back now. it's to me, that was a game changer to me. For those little resistor things, that was a big deal.
Yeah, and that sounds totally makes sense to what I thought in theory, but hey, I have to actually try it. And we stay in touch on this one. And hey, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me
on my YouTube channel. Yeah, big pleasure. So hey, stay in touch and all the best. No?
You as well.
Cheers, Lucas.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.